Okay, for this presentation, we're going to do the instructions in English, unless you prefer French. English will be better, okay. For this case, you will have 20 minutes to make your presentation in front of the judges. If your presentation lasts under 18 minutes, you'll receive a 1-point penalty for every 30 seconds. If your presentation lasts under 15 minutes, your team will receive the score of 0 in the general ranking for this case. If after 20 minutes you have not completed the presentation, you will be stopped to move on to the question period. At the end of the presentation, the judges will have 5 minutes to ask their questions. I remind the jury that it is mandatory to ask a minimum of 1 question during this period. If after 5 minutes you have not finished answering the question, you will be stopped. Throughout the presentation, Catherine will indicate the remaining time using cardboards at 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and 2 minutes, and also using her fingers for 10 or 30 seconds, 10 seconds? 10 seconds, 10 seconds. And she will make a countdown using her fingers for the last seconds of the presentation. I remind you that it is prohibited to say the name of your university. If you do so, you will receive a penalty. I also remind the public that it is prohibited to use any electronic devices during the presentation, and that the public must stay quiet until the end of the period, the question period. Before we begin, I will ask the room to turn off their cell phones and put them on mute so that we don't interrupt the presentation. And I will ask the judges to present themselves. So I'll start with myself. My name is Charles Berryville. I'm a full-time lecturer at HEC Montréal.
Hi, my name is Lucy Rodriguez. I'm the National Director for Talent Management at Metro.
Hi, my name is Caroline Pintal. I'm a Talent and Diversity Advisor at Bombardier.
Good morning, my name is Dali Spende, CHRO Cascade.
Hi, my name is Virginie Ronsard, VPHR for Cascade Tissue Group.
Good morning, my name is Karen Jobin, VPHR for the Cascade Container Packaging Group.
Good morning, my name is Emmanuelle Mignot, VP of HR for SPG.
HR has challenged companies' growth since many years. Right now, it is now a fact that we realize that the importance of the employees and the workforce as an engine in the company's growth. Surely there's no black and white solution, but we today stand here to suggest and recommend our best strategy in order to ensure growth and for sure provide future recommendation for your companies to stay competitive worldwide. So my name is Frédéric, and I'm here along with my team, Andy and Ryan, to present you our best recommendation when it comes to Cascade HR planification. So we will start with some context information that we identify as fundamental and critical for to define the problems and recommendation, and then we will follow with our strategy in threefold. Before we'll show how we would implement it, and finish with some some KPIs in order to show success and some risk and mitigation. So I will now let my colleague Ryan to start with the context.
So although Cascade has experienced sustainable growth over the past few decades, they are now facing a few specific HR problems. The first being that they're facing labor shortages, specifically for the operations positions working in the production centers. The second main problem is that employee engagement has fallen. Cascade did hold a very high standard of employee relations, and that was one of the driving forces of their success over the years. But now that has started to fade a little bit with a few different reasons why. And frontline employees, such as the operations positions, have the lowest engagement, which is a big problem. The third main problem is that current employees are not equipped with skills to operate modernized equipment. So this is an inevitable trend in the industry. A lot of automation is going to come into this industry and threaten to take away jobs, but not if employees are able to acquire or learn skills to help operate alongside these machines and benefit the company.
I'm glad to take you now through the opportunity that we've identified for Cascade. We're here to convince you that by implementing the 3R strategy and mind that this isn't the 3R that we know from recycling. This time it stands for recruit, retain, and rise. By implementing the 3R strategy, the management of Cascade will ensure that recruiting needs are met, that retention is maximized, opening the doors for engaged employees to rise with the company, all within the spirit of the firm's values. Now, I'll go through the first of the R's, which stands for recruit. There's two parts to it. I'm going to start with the domestic. We propose that the HR department takes the same measures for hiring as it has been so far. That is, leveraging its strong social media presence that's been strongly upped in the recent years. However, we propose targeting candidates inhabiting urban areas, even to work in the more remote rural areas. The solution to this is that we propose establishing of a bus shuttle service that will take employees from the urban areas to their place of work and back daily. Now, internationally, we propose that the HR department begin hiring internationally, taking the same measures as domestically, again, through social media, with slight modifications, for example, with legal information, but thanks to leveraging, again, social media, this can be done at a negligible added cost. The countries to target through this measure would be countries with high unemployment, both in Europe and, for example, Latin America in the shorter term. To hire internationally, the HR department will manage this through a new hire into the HR team, and this HR professional will be solely responsible for international hire and all related legal matters. The effect of this will be that all positions will be filled on an as-needed basis across all the plants in Quebec and in Canada, and the culture of Cascade, of sustainability, will be further supported thanks to the notion of collective transport and the shuttle system. Now, Frédéric will take you through the second of our R's.
An important component of our strategy is definitely the retaining part. So when we thought about this first, we realized that the desire of new workers has changed throughout the years. And so this is why we want to implement monthly talks with your supervisor or manager. As in Cascade employees, this regular meeting, so we recommend once a month because we believe it's enough, but still we want to make it on a regular basis that enhance the relation between the worker and its supervisor, and thus providing a sense of belonging and satisfaction in his work. Again, in 2020, workers come to a job for the task and the salary and stick to it for their boss. So definitely this is something we want to address by implementing these monthly talks. Also related to these small meetings, we want to make them quite informal because we believe that it's with this climate of atmosphere of sharing that it will most affect the workers' future. So first of all, we want them to talk about the employees' future within the company, because we believe that if the companies can think and see the opportunities to grow, he will stick with the company. Also, we want to discuss the employees' concern. So if there's any, we know there's surely procedure right now to check and have feedback from workers, to check if they like what they're doing, if they're good at it, and there's quality control on different levels. But still, we want to enlarge this to more concern on the personal life of this employee. We want to enhance the sense of belonging here. Also, during these meetings, we want to include a part on future training. So basically, we saw that Alain Lemaire Skills Development Center already exists, and we think we should leverage on that. So first of all, we want to have a new opportunities for the workers to get on board with all the trainings that are offered. And we didn't really, we didn't investigate too much on the teams that can be teach there, or the how, but we have, because we believe it fell out of scope a little bit on the technologic side, but we believe that we can definitely use the e-training or make different phases in order to see what's best suits those skill development. Again, in the mentality of tomorrow's worker will need different skills. Finally, on these trainings, we are more on the side of having a credit-based So each employee will have the opportunity to customize its own training and path and select a workshop that really interests them, because at the end of the day, we want to make them feel that they learn something and that they feel they belong there. So it would be basically a bank of hours that are given depending on the level of the employee. So whether it's a new employee, whether he's working on the production level, or if it's a supervisor. Finally, we want to redesign the profit sharing scheme. So right now, we know that you adapted recently on different unit center of production and based on the profitability of each, but we think that because of the recent survey that showed dissatisfaction, we think that it's time to look at other possibilities in order to make everyone happy of their remuneration and feel that they are compensated on what they should get. So on a worldwide perspective, we think that we should evaluate the possibility of implementing an index that would be based on the firm's value on one hand and keeping some performance index on the other hand, such as the profitability and the production level of the units. For sure, this is a new innovative thing, and we think that going on board with this profit sharing scheme is risky because it can also cause some dissatisfaction on the other hand. But we believe that if it's studied correctly and taking the time to implement it and get feedback from the employees, it can definitely be a good impact for your employees. All in all, these will have consequences and results such as increasing the sense of belonging and satisfaction and ensuring that you meet the challenges given by the labor market. So now I'll let Ryan present the last part of our recommendation.
The third part of our recommendation is Cascade Rise. So the first part of this would be the creation of Cascader leader groups. So what this would look like is a group of frontline employees would form a group on a volunteer and rotating basis. So you would only take part if you want to, and everybody would get an opportunity. So these employees are in a unique position because they're on the floor working the day-to-day. They see problems that maybe senior managers don't. They talk to other employees and get a feel of what they feel the biggest problems are. Then they can meet and clearly define solutions to these problems, and then bring these ideas to more senior management who could take them under consideration and either choose to adopt them or not. The benefits of this is that in the recent employee survey, it showed that workers really felt like their opinion wasn't being valued and they didn't have as much autonomy as they might like. And this is kind of to reverse that, so that everybody has a voice, not just the people in this group, but the people who they talk to, so you kind of get to hear everybody's voice. This is especially pertinent for younger generations because as they move into the workforce, a stereotype of the younger generation is that they have strong opinions and they want to feel heard, so this would help them feel more valued at the company, and they would also bring important ideas forward that could be implemented. And then, so upper management doesn't have to accept all the solutions that they propose, but it's still extremely valuable to keep this channel of communication open, and just identifying the problems is success enough. And then secondly, we're going to continue partnerships with municipalities and local charities, so focusing on the environment, because a pillar of Cascade is that they are an environmentally focused company. But for workers who are working in the facilities on the day-to-day, they might not always get to see this. So by having paid hours to volunteer every year, they'll feel like they're really making a difference in their community when they might not feel like that at work. They'll be able to volunteer with friends and coworkers, and this could increase workplace morale when they're able to bond with their coworkers over this. And then also improve on employee events. So we're thinking semi-annually, just focused on employee achievement. Another thing that was lacking in the recent employee survey was recognition. So this would be where employees could vote on awards and just really recognize the best employees who work the hardest or lend a hand or show leadership traits. And it's important that these awards are voted on by other employees because some things might be missed by management if they were just appointed. So now my colleague Andy will go over the timeline of our implementation.
Yeah, so you're certainly wondering about the order of when our suggestions are to be implemented. For this purpose, we present to you a timeline. And for the sake of convenience, we split it into 3 parts: short-term, medium-term, and long-term. Now the short-term, we understand as the next 2 months, so before the end of February 2020. Medium-term, before the end of this year, and then long-term, 2021 onward. In the short-term, we propose that an internal communication of the coming changes be released. So, meaning, we'll announce to all the employees Cascade Talks, which are the monthly meetings of all employees with their immediate supervisor, as well as the leader groups. Within these next 2 months, partnerships with municipalities and environmental charities will be established as well. Next, a posting will be created by the HR department for the hire of the new HR professional in charge of international hiring. This employee will be able to, throughout the next year, learn about the company, learn about the immense challenge in front of them, and so we propose that this be done as early as possible in the short term, before the end of February 2020. Lastly, for the short term, we'll evaluate the indexes for the change in the profit sharing scheme. Moving on to the midterm, we'll actually implement the Cascade Talks. We'll communicate the change that's been established regarding the index. Leader groups, as well as the volunteering, will begin based on the partnerships established before the end of February, and new job postings will be made both in Canada and abroad under the supervision of the new hire in the HR department. Now in the long term, 2021 onward, the fleet of shuttle buses will be in operation. We understand that this might pose a serious cost, and it's thanks to the Cascade Talks that we'll be implementing it gradually and see how the shuttle service is accepted in one plant, then maybe in another, and that way this risk of the large expense is mitigated. Next, the international employees who arrive to Canada will be integrated into the Cascade family and truly become cascaders. New career development paths will be established in cooperation with the Skills Development Center, which already exists. And lastly, recommendations from the leader groups will be brought to life. Now we'll move on to the KPIs, so to understand how to measure the success of our strategy.
So these are just a few important aspects so we know how well our strategy is working once implemented. So one of the most important ones would be turnover rate. We would hope that it would fall below 10%. Currently, it's higher than that, which isn't great because it means you need to spend more money on recruiting and retraining and all that. So if we're able to increase employee satisfaction at work, this would lead to decreased turnover and decreased costs in recruiting aspects. And then we also want the 43 positions need to be filled per month. So we want to take a big chunk out of this number as possible through our recruiting and retaining. And then also another way to measure success would be the number of new initiatives implemented. So this would be a ratio of initiatives brought forward by employees and how many implemented, so we know if management is taking these considerations seriously or not. And now Fred will talk about risk and mitigation.
Yeah, so for sure we believe that our recommendation do address all the challenges we read in the case and that we understand from your perspective. But we understand that there's some risk in the strategy we recommended. I mean, why not taking risk when you can have the opportunity to secure some really nice HR planification? So first risk we identified was the legal issues. International recruitment, we need to address this with some the low down fine. I have the French expression. So first of all, we need to deal with the government because there's regulation on that behalf. But we think that there's opportunities for you to look for mandate instead of fixed and full-time position at first. And we want to look in countries that it is more easy for us to go recruit. And we're not close-minded in terms of recruiting people that maybe not are operators as of right now, because there's more flexibility to hire international workers when they have some education, some level of education. So we understand that, and we think that we can mitigate this with the mandate and with some negotiation with the government. Also for the shuttle, we know that it's really expensive. This is why we want to put this strategy into phases and really look at some feedback and KPIs in order to look, is it really profitable to go there? But if you don't take the chance, you never see if it's a a future for you to recruit people from the cities. Finally, we know that the index, as I mentioned, is maybe not reflecting correctly all the efforts the workers are giving in every unit and center of production. But it is, again, one of the ways we believe that it is most rewarding for the employees still to check into the firm's value and see how they apply it to their day-to-day work. So all in all, my team and I came here today with some recommendations. We start with Cascade employees at the heart of its community, and we still believe that it is the time to look at some planification that can give the employees a way for them to grow with the business that is different from what you've been doing for years and that you've been succeeding at. We recommend the 3R strategy because we think that these challenges that you're facing in terms of recruitment, retention, and also the future of the labor market is addressed through our strategy. So Cascade Future success relies on its capacity to implement an innovative HR, and this is why today we're recommending an innovative strategy, yet it is risky, but it is one that we believe can answer all the needs. Thank you for your attention. I now open the floor to questions.
I guess my first question as a business person is, how much is this going to cost? Have you given thought to the costs involved in the recommendations that you're making?
So we have some preliminary numbers for what this is going to cost. So we budgeted approximately $10,000 per facility for the charity event, because the employees are going to be volunteering, but then we're also thinking of making a monetary donation to go with that. And then also $10,000 annually for the employee events to recognize the performance of the employees. So we weren't given a number on the number of facilities in Quebec, but with the proportion of employees, we estimate 30 facilities, so this would be a total of $600,000. And then for the training of workers, so we're estimating $1,500 per worker, and then 60 hours and a wage of $25 an hour. And then for the shuttle buses, this is a pretty substantial cost. This would be for the absolute full fleet of shuttle buses for all factories. So that we don't have the numbers for our timeline of implementation, but it would be a lot less at this beginning. And then if we were seeing success, we could actually work up to this number.
Thank you.
In your international recruitment strategy, have you given consideration to the language challenge?
Yes, in fact, it is one of the considerations we give. So we think that because Cascade can become an agent of change in the community, in fact, it is the point of reference for the new worker coming from a different country. It can also be, the company can take this as an opportunity to engage more in the community. So for sure, French is the language in Quebec in most of these units, and English too. And so workers that come from, example, from South America might not have the competence to understand everything at first. But it is actually something that it is done. So you can learn the language, there's programs that are given. And if we go with this strategy, we think that there can be allowances for them to learn the French and English as a requirement. But because we want to go into phases, we think that first looking into countries that speak and into workers that do have the knowledge of these languages is better as of right now.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you very much.